It's Uncovered, and welcome to Wednesday. I'm Anthony Davis. He's Ron Filipkowski, and together we uncover the MAGA propaganda that is not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. Ron, how you doing? How's your Wednesday?
Watching confirmation hearings. There's like 6 of them going on right now.
Me too.
Yeah, it's been busy.
It's crazy. I thought the Pete Hegseth stuff couldn't get any weirder, and then Pam Bondi came on, and I was like, I feel like I'm in a kind of hearings twilight zone. Let's start with Pete Hegseth, though, because obviously there's, this is a bit of a shoe-in. For people who don't know, Hegseth is a Fox News or former Fox News weekend host who was in the military and never kind of went through the ranks of the military, wasn't a general or anything, but he is the only person that Donald Trump appears to know who has any connection to the military, and therefore he's perfect for the job as boss of the Department of Defense. Does that sum it up fairly?
Well, and he also praises Donald Trump a lot, which is also a very important criteria. I think
right.
The first 12 minutes of the hearing, he mentioned Trump's name like 85 times, praising him. So he was obviously aware that Trump was watching.
So we call that playing to the gallery. Should we take a look at some of the clips before we start analyzing this and kind of see exactly what kind of a fool he's making of himself? Because, it was a painful watch, to say the very least. Let's take a quick look.
Correct?
Senator, on multiple occasions, including as a young second lieutenant, I have sworn an oath to the Constitution,
yes.
and I'm proud to do so. Yes, ma'am.
In June of 2020, then President Trump directed former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper to shoot protesters in the legs in downtown D.C., an order Secretary Esper refused to comply with. Would you carry out such an order from President Trump?
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard unit that was in Lafayette Square during those
events. Would you carry out an order to shoot protesters in the legs?
I saw 50 Secret Service agents get injured by rioters trying to jump over the fence, set the church on fire, and destroy a statue.
That sounds to me that you will comply with such an order. You will shoot protesters in the leg.
So this is a kind of a good place to start, really, isn't it? Proving that Pete Hegseth is very much in the tank for Donald Trump and is going to do whatever Trump asks, and is a surrogate for him, effectively.
That's the main concern is Trump's relationships with his past Secretary of Defenses, where he repeatedly asked them to do things that were crazy, that were bizarre, that were illegal, that violated the Constitution, and they all pushed back and refused. And in this particular situation, Esper came out and said publicly what Trump had asked him to do, said that he had refused to not only shoot protesters in the leg, but Trump wanted him to bring the 82nd Airborne into D.C. To deal with these protesters. So what we know is that Esper refused, and Esper was fired very shortly, right after the election. He was fired for this. So the question then becomes, okay, at least Trump's last secretaries of defense refused to carry out these illegal orders. We have some question whether you will, Pete Hegseth. And so they repeatedly asked him, is there anything that Donald Trump could ask you to do that you would refuse to do? And no, there wasn't. There was never a point in time where he said, look, if Donald Trump told me to do X, Y, Z, I would not do it. And we also know that Trump has immunity from prosecution this time, which he did not know last time. So this is a bad combination of things here, where you have Trump knowing he has immunity. He loves using the military domestically, which is not legal. And he's got a Secretary of Defense who's now willing to do it.
And there are multiple issues surrounding Pete Hegseth. There's the womanizing, there's the alcohol abuse, there's obviously his allegiance to Donald Trump, so he's not independent in any way. There's the Christian nationalism, the tattoos that and you know, suggestion that he might be some kind of white nationalist. I mean, there's no shortage of things that disqualify him from this role, are there?
No, a lot of time was spent on his drinking, and I've heard some pushback from Democrats on this, which is like, well, we don't think that the drinking is really that big of an issue. People shouldn't focus on that. And look, this isn't a situation where we're like denigrating him for having an alcohol problem in the past. That's not what's happening here. The issue is drinking on the job to the point where you're passed out drunk. There have been multiple people who have said on multiple different occasions that he had to be carried out of work-related events because he literally drank himself to where he would fall on the floor. Many times, we know that he's got half a dozen or so liquor bottles in his office at Fox after, and they're half drunk because we've seen pictures of him after he claimed that he has never drank alcohol at work. So his responses to every question about his alcohol problem, you know, he could have said, look, I had a problem and I've overcome it. I went to counseling, you know, that I think we all could understand, but he doesn't say that. He denies it all. He says, these are all lies. This is all anonymous smears. Everything they're saying about my alcohol issues is not true. So I think that what we have with Tim Kaine brought this up. He said, look, Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly said, look, I have more of a problem with the fact that you're sitting here lying, obviously lying to us about it, than I do the fact that you drink too much.
Let's take a look at Mark Kelly.
Virginia, you needed to be carried out of the event for being intoxicated.
Senator, anonymous smears.
Just true or false? Very simple. Summer of 2014 in Cleveland, drunk in public with the CVA team.
Anonymous smears.
I'm just asking for true or false questions. True or false answers. An event in North Carolina, drunk in front of 3 young female staff members after you had instituted a no alcohol policy and then reversed it. True or false?
Anonymous smears.
December of 2014 at the CVA Christmas party at the Grand Hyatt at Washington, D.C., you were noticeably intoxicated and had to be carried up to your room. Is that true or false?
Anonymous smears.
Another time, a CVA staffer stated that you passed out in the back of a party bus. Is that true or false?
Anonymous smears.
Anonymous smears, Ron. I mean, the other thing he said is that he would give up drinking alcohol completely if he got this job. But that completely avoids the question of if he's an addict or not. And if he is an alcoholic, then he can't give it up. You can't go cold turkey. That would have horrific ramifications for him, his personal life, withdrawing, and certainly for the job.
I mean, what's the first thing that you have to do as a substance abuser to get yourself on the road to recovery? Everybody knows this. Every addict knows this. You have to admit that you have a problem. That's step one. And he doesn't admit that he has a problem. So it'd be one thing if he admitted he has a problem and said he got help, he got counseling. I wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. I don't think anybody would. We would applaud him. You know, we would say that that's great, like Hunter Biden, you know, like that's great that you overcame your demons and you understand that they're always there in the background and you need to be vigilant, you know, but he's defiant. He's the opposite. And we've seen no indication from him that he can stop drinking. You know, we've turned the Secretary of Defense position into an Alcoholics Anonymous situation. I'll only quit drinking if I'm Secretary of Defense. It's just nuts. And, you know, and you know, he said, I've never once drank at Fox. Well, we and many other media outlets have now produced something like 6 or 7 clips of him where he's drinking on the job. And, you know, people they just slough it off. They just say, oh, who cares? You know, what's the big deal? The big deal is he's lying about this, and he's lying about it for a reason, because he has a problem.
It's very sad that it's kind of come to this, that the quality of candidates for Donald Trump's cabinet are so poor that we're all having to kind of scrabble around and talk about alcoholism and talk about these things that shouldn't even feature when you're looking at these positions. It should have, the vetting should have been done much earlier on. Donald Trump, with the FBI and private vetters, as we know, should have done all this, and Pete Hegseth should have been an outcast from the very beginning to be Secretary of Defense with all of this baggage. A lot of the Republican senators who are grilling him are very much on side, aren't they? They're trying to blow as much smoke up his backside as they possibly can, and they're trying to paint him as being a kind of model citizen and a wonderful guy, and it's great, and they're just trying to counterbalance the facts that Democrats are bringing to this hearing with just a whole lot of hot air to give the impression that, well, he's such a sweetie and he's in it for the right reasons, that none of that stuff matters.
The emphasis from him and the Republicans seems to be on the fact that, he was in combat, he was in the front lines, and he stands by those people 100%. Well, okay. I mean, there's some good things about that. I like the fact that he was, in the junior ranks of officers. I think that that's a good thing. The fact that he never worked for a defense contractor, I think, is a healthy thing for change. We have had a lot of Secretary of the Defenses who had that kind of a background. But the problem is he takes it to an extreme, and probably the thing that bothered me more than anything that he said was when he talked about the war crimes situations, because he lobbied Trump to pardon the soldiers who are convicted of war crimes. And this was when their fellow soldiers came forward and outed them, whistleblowered them, and came forward and said what they saw these people do. That took a lot of courage on their part. That went to trial. Those people were convicted. And then Hegseth lobbied Trump to pardon him, and Trump did. And a consistent theme of his answers was, I'm always going to back the war fighters. I'm always going to side with them over. He kept talking about the lawyers and the bureaucrats. Well, those lawyers and bureaucrats, there are rules of engagement for a reason. They are to minimize civilian casualties in combat zones. And a lot of people in the military don't like rules of engagement. I served with them too, but they're there for a good reason. And I get that you don't like them as like a second lieutenant in Afghanistan, that you don't like all these rules, but they are there for a reason. And so when you have somebody who's a Secretary of Defense who says, I don't agree with all of that stuff, we need to untie their hands, we need to defer to the discretion of the people on the ground and don't second guess them, that causes me a lot of concern. I mean, what we can hope for is hopefully there just aren't any wars in the next 4 years to where we have to worry about that.
As a former Marine yourself, would you say that Pete Hegseth is typical of the kind of Army officer who is, just very much of his platoon or battalion? I don't know what the correct terms are. Yeah. And this is kind of typical, because as I understand it, a lot of these guys, they watch Fox News in the mess hall, and they have certain opinions of their own, and he just seems to be another one of these guys who's just like big into the guns and big into killing the bad guys.
There are officers like this. I would say they're a minority. In my experience, probably like 20% of the officers are kind of like this, have this kind of attitude or mentality. But these are not the people that rise up in the ranks. They aren't the people who become colonels and generals or even majors. Right. These are people that screw up, make mistakes, get out or get kicked out, typically. Or they mature and grow out of this and learn and change. But he never did that. I mean, he's still stuck in the mentality of a first lieutenant in an infantry platoon in combat. And the job of the Secretary of Defense is much different than that. It literally has almost nothing to do with that. So I don't know that taking that mentality and being in charge of the entire Department of Defense is really a qualification. It's a qualification to be maybe an instructor at the infantry training school, but not to run the Department of Defense.
And the argument that they've tried defense contractors, they've tried former generals in this role, and look where that's got us.
Yeah.
I mean, he actually said those words out loud as part of his opening statement. I mean, it is so offensive, not just to Lloyd Austin, but any leader who has come before him. And it's offensive to the armed services in its entirety.
And we've seen so often presidents actually choose members of the other party for this position because it is supposed to be nonpartisan. Barack Obama chose a Republican to be his Secretary of Defense, a Republican senator, Chuck Hagel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is, and past presidents have done that specifically to try and show that they don't believe this is a partisan position. So yes, like, I mean, I think it's good that you have somebody who's, been in the lower ranks, been in combat, all that kind of stuff. But, to just discard experience and being a general and being an administrator or commanding, huge theater-wide units where you have bases scattered across the Pacific. I mean, that experience is valuable, and he's just discounting it. He's just saying, like, those guys are all, woke bureaucrats and they're not war fighters. It's like, give me a break. A lot of those guys fought in combat too. They just did it before you did.
But part of the problem is when the commander-in-chief is a two-bit realtor who flips commercial properties and was on a reality TV show, when that is the standard for, who's never been in politics, was never a senator or a governor or a mayor even. He's literally just a bloke off TV. That lowers the standard right across the board, and it means that you and I are having to sit here even considering Pete Hegseth as a serious candidate because the guy at the top is also an unserious candidate.
Well, when you think about the way Trump views the military and how it should be used and how it should behave, it's very consistent with what Pete Hegseth believes. So it makes sense to me that, he didn't just choose Hegseth because he was like some random guy on Fox who had been in the military. No, I think he listened to what Hegseth had to say about the military on Fox quite a lot. And he liked what he heard because it was similar to his beliefs about how the military should be used. Trump doesn't care about collateral damage, civilian casualties, anything like that. And so neither does Hegseth. And Trump wants to use the military domestically. And Hegseth doesn't have a problem with that. He was asked, would you use the military to run migrant shelters that where we were trying to, round up migrants for deportation? Would you agree that to use the military for that, even though they're not trained for that kind of mission? And he said, yes. He said he considers the migrant issue an issue of national security. Therefore, the military, he would have no problem with the military playing a role, which is nuts.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Let's have a quick look at some of the other senators who are kind of coming out in favor of him. And like I say, just celebrating him to try and counteract the facts coming from the Democratic camp. This one comes from Senator Mullen.
I've made mistakes, and Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too.
So the wives are quite a theme for these Republicans, right? That a lot of these guys have done bad things. They've broken the law. They've dropped the ball. They talk a lot about Jesus in these hearings and how, Jesus will forgive them. But if it wasn't for their new wives, because a lot of them, they found new partners and found a new life for themselves. They found someone that loves them enough to forgive them as Jesus forgives them. And that was quite a theme throughout, wasn't it?
It really was. I mean, he kept saying that over and over again. Like, my wife forgives me for all the bad things I've done, and so does God, and so therefore, who are you to sit here and judge me when they're staying by me? But I think what was pointed out by Tim Kaine was look, he asked him, okay, so he asked him about the sexual assault allegations, which, by the way, the woman is under the NDA, so nobody talked to her. Nobody was able to talk to her on the committee. By the way, Hegseth also refused to meet with any of the Democratic senators, which has never happened before. No nominee has ever refused to meet with the other party's senators on the Armed Services Committee. That's never happened before. So yet another, long tradition being broken here. But, he asked him about the sexual assault, which of course he denied. Okay. But then he said, okay, well, wait a minute. Will you at least admit that you had consensual sex with her? Because here's the point. He was saying, your third wife had just given birth 60 days before that. And she was pregnant with a child that you impregnated her while you were married to your second wife. And you supposedly have this work affair with somebody else. And he's like, don't you think that shows extremely poor judgment? And he said, will you at least admit that you had consensual sex, which I think has come out, he's admitted to in the past. He would not even admit to that. So, there's just this candor issue. There's just a lack of, like I said, if you come clean on these things, I would view them much differently, but he doesn't. He denies them all, which is crazy.
There was an awful lot of deception throughout this hearing. And it was the same with the Pam Bondi hearing. I just felt with her that we were looking at literally a Trump lawyer, a Trump loyalist. And so this is starting to paint a picture of what this cabinet is going to look like if these people get confirmed. And sadly, I have a worrying feeling that they will be confirmed, even Hegseth. What about you? Do you think that that's likely?
Well, Joni Ernst was the key here. I think Joni Ernst was the female on the Armed Services Committee, Republican from Iowa, who was a woman in combat, and she was a sex assault victim while in the military. So when Hegseth was first nominated, she was the one who was like, what are we doing here? This is a man who wrote in his book last year, women should not serve in combat positions, period. And so here's what happened. What happened is Trump and everyone in his orbit, all the influencers, your Charlie Kirks, all these people brought all the pressure to bear on Joni Ernst. Threats, we're gonna primary you. She's up for election in 2 years. She's in a state that Trump won by, I think, 9 points. So they basically let her know, if you oppose Hegseth, we are coming after you. And so what happened is Hegseth lied. He basically just completely changed his position on women in the military. Okay. He's had that position that women should not be in combat roles his entire life. He said it dozens of times. He wrote it in his book last year, but now after meeting with Joni Ernst, he says, okay, I've changed my mind about that. So what did she do after the hearing yesterday? I mean, she comes out and she issues a statement saying, okay, I'm going to support Hegseth. So what does that tell you? That tells you that she doesn't want to do this. She knows that this is the wrong thing to do, but she has caved to the pressure. Because if she was proud of this, she would have stood behind a microphone in front of the media and said why she was endorsing him, but she didn't do that. She just put out the statement to turn the heat off of her. And so I think that with her backing him, yes, I think he will be confirmed. I think she was the key. I think she could have brought 3 other Republicans with her if she opposed him, but she's not. What I think is going to happen is you're going to have 1, maybe 2 Republicans will vote against Hegseth, but then you're also going to see 1 or 2 Democrats vote for him, which could include John Fetterman.
Which is nuts. It's completely nuts. I mean, anybody who is buying into this doesn't recognize the magnitude of and the seriousness of this and the ramifications of having somebody like him in this position. I mean, am I right in saying that the defense lead also has access to the nuclear codes as well? I mean, he has that responsibility.
Yeah, I think there's only two people in the U.S. government who have them with them at all times, and that I don't even think the Secretary of the State or National Security Advisor does. I think it's only the President and the Secretary of Defense. Yeah.
Okay, well, pack your bags, Ron. We're going to Mars. We should probably mention at this point that I want to come on to the California fires in just a little while, but I want to talk about the Ukraine war very quickly whilst we're on the subject of defense, because Trump has been talking so much about how he could end the war in 24 hours, that it was just a phone call, and that, you know, he knows Putin very well and all this stuff. Well, we've now discovered that this is clearly not the case. He said he could end the war before the inauguration. The inauguration just a few days away. And no movement there. And in fact, he has a new special envoy, doesn't he, for the Ukraine-Russia war, who has now set a position of, what, 100 days? Let's take a look.
What we'll set the conditions for the president, and then he'll eventually get to a position where he'll be talking to President Putin and also President Zelensky as well. And I think they're going to come to a solvable solution in the near term. And when I say by the near term, you know, I would like to set a goal on a personal level and professional level. I would say let's set it at 100 days and move our way back and figure a way we can do this in the near term to make sure that this solution is solid, it's sustainable, and that this war ends and so that we stop the carnage. And I think that's going to be very, very important to do. It's going to be important for our national security. It's a part of our vital national interest, and it's also good for Europe as well, and the globe as well.
All right, General.
Do you think Trump supporters realize that all of these pre-election promises are now falling by the wayside?
Yeah, I think a lot of them know. A lot of them knew that they were lies at the time, but they don't care. You know, this is the thing. Like there are many Trump supporters who are well aware that he lies about all this stuff. You know, he promises, but they feel like this is what he needed to say to win, and once he gets in, he'll figure it out because he's so great. You know, so I don't think any of them believed him when he said that he would end the war in 24 hours. I mean, I don't think anybody with, you know, any sane person, including them, believed that. And so, but the thing is, like, Trump just, when the first time he said it, I was the one who caught it, and he said it on, bizarrely enough, the Nelk Brothers podcast, who we'll be talking about in a little bit with Greenland, possibly. But that was the first time he said it, and it was way back in like early 2022. If I was president, I would end this war in 24 hours. And I fell out of my chair. I thought, well, he just slipped there. He's not going to say that again, you know. And he said it hundreds of times, over and over again, how easy it was going to be. He could do it in one phone call. He was going to get him in a room, talk to him, and it would be done. And Biden was a fool because he couldn't do that. And now what are we hearing? Well, we just heard from his Ukraine envoy. Maybe 100 days. That's our goal. I'm setting a goal for 100 days. It's like, what happened to the 24 hours? And we're also seeing, you know, the news today, the breaking news, the Hamas has finally agreed to the ceasefire deal that the Biden administration has been working on for a long time. Biden's devoted his last month of his presidency primarily to this one thing that he wanted to get done before he left, which he's been working on every single day. So the ceasefire deal was announced today, like at 11 o'clock this morning, Eastern time, a couple hours ago. And Trump was out there taking credit. Trump put out 2 statements already saying, this is all me. I did this. It's because I'm coming in and they're afraid of me and da-da-da. You know, but here again is a problem, because why is Trump announcing the Hamas ceasefire? Why is Trump out there claiming credit? Where is Joe Biden? Where's the Democrats? Where's the Secretary of State? Once again, he allows them to take credit for something that they did because they fail at selling themselves and they fail at communicating over and over and over again. And we're seeing it again today on this ceasefire deal.
By creating a vacuum or leaving a vacuum, it enables Trump to jump in there and either take the credit or redirect the narrative. But this has been going on for years. Exactly. And that's what's so frustrating about it.
Yeah, frustrating for all of us because we knew he was going to claim credit. We knew this. We at Midas, all of us, we've been following the ceasefire negotiations very closely, and what we said is Trump is going to take credit for this. No, we knew. So if we know it, how is it the administration doesn't know it? How is it this isn't being announced from the Oval Office by Joe Biden at 11 o'clock this morning, or at the very least by Blinken or Jake Sullivan? Why did I hear about this from Donald Trump, who's taking credit for it? And then I'm like, well, is this true? Oh, yes, it is. It turns out it is true. But the first I heard of it was when Donald Trump is taking credit for it. So it's like he understands how to play the game in the modern. This was what I said to our team when this went down an hour ago. I said, look, Donald Trump and the people around him understand how to play this game in the social media era, and the people that we have in the White House don't. And what we need to do in 2028 is we need to make sure that we do not have one of these dinosaurs stuck in 1995 as our nominee. We need to have a tech-savvy, social media-savvy person who gets how to play this game and can counter these people in the new era of media.
Well, you know who that is, don't you? I think that's starting to become obvious, isn't it?
Well, Gavin Newsom is demonstrating right now that he has that ability because they have hit him with a fire hose of propaganda, disinformation from a million different directions. And I will give him all the credit in the world that he has been out there countering this stuff, putting the facts out every minute, every day, every hour. He doesn't just view his job. This is the problem. There's two parts to the job of being a politician, okay? Yes, you have to run your agencies and run your government, and Biden gets that part of the job. But then the second part of the job is you have to sell what you're doing to the public. You have to show them. You have to tell them. You have to counter the lies from the other side. This is the part that our current administration has never understood, that is a second part of the job. And they just ignore that part of the job. They just think, Joe just thinks, I'll do a great job for the American people and they'll give me credit they'll see what I've done with their own eyes and they will give me the credit for it. That's not how things work anymore. This isn't we're not waiting for like Peter Jennings or Walter Cronkite at 6 o'clock to tell the American people what happened that day. That world is dead, but Joe Biden still lives in that world. And so many of the people around him do. They're stuck in it. And so, but here's the thing about Newsom, that, he did that. Where are all the other Democrats? Where are the governors? Where are the other Democratic governors from around the country who are jumping into this to help him out and to say, these are lies. What he's saying is like, they're nowhere. The only other Democrat I've really seen out there is Adam Schiff, but he represents California. Of course he's out there.
Yeah.
So this is the other part of the problem is I think a lot of these other Democratic governors who could come in and back him up are not doing it. And I have to ask the question, why? Well, because maybe they view Gavin Newsom as a rival for the 2028 nomination. So they don't want to help him. I hope that's not the case.
I think sometimes you have to trust your instinct. But isn't it interesting with this power vacuum on the Democratic side? Because obviously since the election, they've all been, it's been painful. The level of absence has been painful. And even though Biden made a good speech at the State Department the other day, like it's just not enough. I don't think anybody watched that, and so we're now in a situation where climate change has brought about these fires, an unprecedented level of disaster that arguably could become the most expensive cleanup in American disaster history. And rising from the ashes is a natural-born leader, somebody who before people were like, oh, he's a little bit too polished or too slimy, his hair is too perfect, he's this, he's that, he's too handsome. The guy is actually rather brilliant. And to set up a website as he has to counterbalance or to counter-argue all of the lies about the California fires that have been put out as propaganda by the right is essential, obvious, and genius. And he's done it. He's also on the ground every single day, picking up debris and talking to people. And I think that this is what we need right now. We need the organic creation of someone. So as devastating as the fires are, what might come of it is a new strength of leadership for the Democratic Party.
You know, this could have been a situation where the public really would have blamed him for some of this stuff, especially with Republicans pushing all the lies. And if he hadn't handled this the right way, I think he would have gotten a lot of that blame and would have been crippled politically. But I think that what people have seen is the fact that he is telling the truth. He is putting the facts out, and he is doing a good job communicating, which is very important because, and here's the other part of it, because Republicans always overplay their hand. So if our people just do their job, I've said this for years, if our people just are competent and do their job, we will beat these people because they are incompetent and they will overplay their hand. And we are seeing this with not only the obvious lies that they continue to tell that get debunked, like Musk and others, that discredits them, but also with the relief aid that they want to put all these strings attached. All these Republicans from Alabama and Ohio and Indiana and North Carolina, all in South Carolina, all saying, and Florida even, all saying we should not give disaster aid to California unless they change their policies on climate change and this and that. And it's like the American public are not going to stand for that. That is not a winning proposition for them. So they're shooting themselves in the foot with that. And this is something that Democrats could really capitalize on. And, you know, I had one of my readers yesterday say, well, how come you didn't put a lot of quotes in there from Democrats about this issue, you know, fighting back on this issue? And I said, to be honest with you, there aren't very many out there. Hakeem Jeffries came out and said this is unacceptable, and one or two others, Schiff, but there just aren't. I'll look for the quotes. I can't find them from Democrats. And
I kind of feel like everyone's waiting for someone else to say something. Yeah, like so nobody wants to be first.
I can find 50 clips of Republicans saying we need to withhold aid to California. How many clips can I find of Democrats saying the opposite? And this is disgusting. Not many.
Let's take a look at a clip of Gavin Newsom pushing back. Here he is.
What's not, I think, helpful or beneficial is this string of consciousness, these wild-eyed fantasies that somehow the state water project, we have reservoirs that are at or near historic highs, full, completely full, that somehow there's a magical spigot in California, in Northern California, that just can be turned on and all of a sudden there'll be rain or water flowing everywhere. It's not helpful. It's damaging to the very foundation of the notion of what are facts, what are truths. And the fact of that asymmetry, that's profound and consequential, amplified by people like, let's be candid, Elon Musk and others. And that 1-2 punch is real. And it's not just about this fire. And as a hurricane force winds of mis and disinformation that can divide a country on a myriad of issues, this is serious.
The other thing is that climate change is never discussed in American media or American politics. It's like a subject that nobody really wants to get into for some strange reason. And, you know, our allies in Europe, they talk about it all the time. It's literally like the top topic of conversation because it is an existential threat. And yet here, you know, we've been warned about this for 50, 60, 70, 80 years that this is coming. And these wildfires are climate change. That's what they are. There's nothing else. It's not because they didn't do forest management properly. It's not for any other reason. This is simply climate change. We've had no rain in California. It is dry. The brush just goes up. And, you know, you could have predicted this. And yet the fact that the incoming administration consider climate change to be a hoax is scaring me more than anything, to be honest.
Yeah, and you have to look at the way California was developed, which was a long time ago, with especially the areas where there was such a bad disaster. Those were homes that were built and decades ago, when this wasn't really an issue. The climate was different back then, and they're all on top of each other. And it's and zones that are difficult in areas where it's difficult to fight fires, to be honest.
Yes.
And so,
and they're all built out of wood because of earthquakes,
right? That's what I mean. These are like old.
Doesn't help either.
These are old neighborhoods that have been there for 80 years, 70 years. Some of the original people who settled out in California built these homes, and so that's also part of the problem. Where, like, Florida, has so many more hurricanes now than we did 30, 40 years ago than they did. But the thing is, most of the homes that were very vulnerable are all gone. They've all been wiped out. So what you have now in Florida is a lot of more hurricane-proof homes that are there. So the impact isn't quite as bad. But I was just down in Sarasota over Christmas, where they had the hurricane a year ago, and everything is wiped out still. Like, there's debris a year later. There's debris everywhere. You can drive down the main drag and 50% of the signs are gone for businesses. They're still not back up. There's still businesses boarded up and closed. Now, this is in Ron DeSantis, Republican county in Florida. 1 year later, there's still a mess and businesses haven't recovered. We don't hear about that. You don't hear Democrats going down there going, why isn't this cleaned up by now? You've had a year. This is a Republican state, because Democrats don't play those games with natural disasters, and they should not. But the point is that I'm listening to Ron DeSantis talk shit about what's happening in California, and I'm looking at the town I lived in and the town my kids lived in, and it still looks like a war zone from a disaster that happened a year ago. So why are you talking?
Let's take a look at Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville, who is trying to argue that it's the mismanagement by Democratic leadership that is the cause of the fire.
Why should other states be bailing out California for choosing the wrong people to run their state?
We shouldn't be. They got 40 million people in that state, and they're voting these imbeciles in office, and they continue to do it. And it's just a very small part of them in that state that's doing it. If you go to California, you run into a lot of Republicans, a lot of good people, and I hate it for them, but they are just overwhelmed by these inner city woke policies with the people that vote for them. And I don't mind sending them some money, but unless they show that they're going to change their ways and get back to building dams and storing water, doing the maintenance with the brush and the trees and everything that everybody else does in the country, and they refuse to do it, they don't deserve anything, to be honest with you, unless they show us they're going to make some changes, Chris.
I mean, he's just lying. No one's refusing to clean out the brush. So much work is done, so much effort is done to try and maintain the land, but it is massive. One of the fires at Pacific Palisades is like 25 what was it, 25,000 acres. Are you kidding me?
And moving fast, hurricane force winds. I mean,
right.
You
can't put it out.
We have a football coach from Alabama who got elected to the Senate largely because of his football coaching fame, right, at Auburn. Yeah. And he lives in Florida. He doesn't even live in his state. His state, by the way, is one of the most dependent states on the federal government in America. Alabama, for every $1 they send to DC in taxes, they get $2.17 back, which is like third in the country of most dependent. If the spigot got turned off, their state would go under faster than almost any other state. Right. But Tuberville doesn't care because he doesn't live there. So for him, and Tuberville knows nothing about California, nothing. And what gives away his ignorance and his racism is a couple of key words in that clip, which is what he said. I've been out to California. Okay. What, like recruiting football players on vacation? I've been out to California, and there's lots of good Republicans, good people that are Republicans in California. But then there's these, what did he say? Inner city people that vote for these Democrats and put them in power. What's he saying? I mean, he's saying there's good white people there, but they're being outvoted by these inner city people of color. Why should we help them? You know, that's
and the gays. Don't forget the gays, the blacks, the browns, the gays. He doesn't want to have anything to do with, and he thinks that that's who's voting for Governor Gavin Newsom. Newsom is probably one of the most effective governors that California has ever had. As you say, not just in terms of the work on the ground, but the communication skills and going into.
When you hear a Republican say inner city, that's the N word. Okay, that's what it is.
Yes, yes. It's too sad. It's too sad. We have to take a quick break, but I want to come back and talk more about Jasmine Crockett, actually, and her taking on Nancy Mace. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. Reset your routine with Cook Unity for an endless variety of vibrant, healthy meals made by award-winning chefs. The chefs you see on TV and in five-star kitchens are the chefs who craft each small batch meal with you in mind. Made from local, in-season ingredients, sent fresh and not frozen, and delivered directly to your door, all at a fraction of the cost and time. Go to cookunity.com/uncovered or enter code UNCOVERED before checkout for 50% off your first week. It's easy and effortless. You can choose from hundreds of meals prepared by award-winning chefs or let them choose for you. No cleanup or meal planning. Meals are delivered fully cooked. Just heat in as little as 5 minutes. Flexible, commitment-free subscriptions. You can skip deliveries, pause, or cancel anytime. Enjoy restaurant-quality meals for a fraction of the price. Subscriptions start as low as $11 a meal. Reset your routine with convenient, mouth-watering meals crafted with local ingredients by award-winning chefs. Go to cookunity.com/uncovered or enter code UNCOVERED before checkout for 50% off your first week. That's 50% off your first week by using code UNCOVERED or going to cookunity.com/uncovered. Looking to take charge of your life with full mental clarity this new year? Enhance your sober January and embrace CBD Awareness Month with VIA to experience the powerful benefits of hemp without the high. Trusted by over 500,000 happy customers, VIA is the Swiss Army knife of wellness, dedicated to harnessing the natural benefits of hemp to create high-quality wellness products. VIA's collection of THC-free products combines minor cannabinoids like CBD, CBG, and CBN with botanical supplements for targeted effects that you can actually feel, whether you're looking to improve your sleep, your focus, or relief. VIA has something for you. VIA is also well-renowned for their award-winning THC and THC-free gummies and vapes, THCA flower, soothing topicals, and calming drops, all crafted with the highest quality hemp sourced from trusted, independently owned American farms. And this is the best part. VIA legally ships to nearly all states in the US in discreet packaging, delivered directly to your door with a worry-free guarantee, no medical card required. So, if you're 21 plus, check out our link to VIA's website in our description and use code UNCOVERED for 15% off. And if you're new to VIA, get a free gift of your choice. After you purchase, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. This year, enhance your everyday with VIA. Welcome back to the pack as we continue to uncover the MAGA propaganda. There's so much of it at the moment. Let's talk to this story that has come out with Jasmine Crockett. I watched her taking on Nancy Mace in the Senate. It was, I mean, it's becoming like a kind of some kind of child's classroom, kid's classroom, but it's actually got worse than that now. Nancy Mace wanted to take this one outside during this clip. Just set it up for us before I show the video.
I mean, there's look, I follow Mace every day, and it's like following it wears you out. It's really like, if you've ever spent time around people with serious mental illnesses, and as a criminal defense lawyer for 29 years, I spent a lot of time around people with mental illness, a lot of time. And she is what it's like, undiagnosed, I think, and she is very disturbed and needs a lot of help. She needs help with counseling. But unfortunately, her counseling is like her Twitter account in Congress. And so she tweets, like, she posts like 100 to 200 things a day, like literally like 15 things an hour. It just doesn't stop. It's round the clock. Everything is manic. Everything is drama. So, you get in this hearing and she's doing her antics. And by the way, she's gotten progressively worse. Was not this bad, anything close to this bad, like 3 years ago or even 2 years ago. Something's going on here where she's just circling the drain. I mean, it definitely got much worse after she separated from her fiance and they had their legal battles over property. That was sort of the point which I started noticing, and her whole staff quit. Her entire staff quit, which never happens, but it did for her. Like, literally everyone in her office left. And so I think that when those things happen, since then, she's really gone crazy. And so when she gets into this hearing with Jasmine Crockett, Jasmine says to her, look, why are you so obsessed with trans? It's obviously just about fundraising. Obviously, you get donations off of this. You can't stop talking about it. And I guess what set her off is Jasmine said, like, child, you need to stop. She used that word, and that set Mace off. And then at one point, Mace says she challenged her to go, let's take it outside. Well, those are fighting words. Yeah. I don't think Crockett heard her, because Crockett was talking at that time when Mace said it. Because I think if Jasmine heard it, she would have jumped up and said, okay, let's go. But she didn't hear it. And then what was funny was after this hearing, after this clip, and about an hour later, Mace is back down real fast. She's like, oh, no. When I said take it outside, I was just saying, let's take it outside and talk. She back, because I think, she doesn't want to mess with Jasmine Crockett, put it that way. She can mess with a lot of people in Congress. That's one person she does not want to mess with.
Well, because she's going to lose, child. That's why. Let's take a look.
Somebody's campaign coffers really are struggling right now. So she going to keep saying trans, so that people will feel threatened. And child, listen, I want y'all to tell me whether or
Do
not
call me a child. I am no child.
I want
Don't
to
even
find
start.
out
I am a grown
which
woman.
of those
I'm 47 years
emails
old. I have broken
actually
more
have.
glass ceilings than you
Chairman,
ever
I
will.
am reclaiming my
Let's go.
time.
You will not do that.
Order.
I am not a
Chairman,
child.
I am reclaiming my time.
If you want to take it outside,
Mr. Chairman, the committee is not in order.
Order.
Point of order.
Order.
And you got James Comer, who couldn't run a hot dog stand, trying to control this.
Right. Yeah, I mean, but we're going to see, the thing is, as the new administration or regime kicks in, we're going to see a whole lot more of this. I mean, it's just going to get so weird, right? And at the moment, we're kind of hanging on by a thread, but if these appointments get ratified, we're gonna just see a level of insanity in the halls of Congress that has just never been seen before. There are no adults in the room.
Yeah, I do. I think it's going to get progressively worse. But then there are times when I'm watching these committee hearings and I'm seeing these Democrats, and they're so old, and they're soft spoken and they're polite, and sometimes I'm like, I would really appreciate that like 10 years ago, those qualities. But I just look at these people and I'm like, are these the people that really are prepared for this, or really know how to deal with this. All these 70 and 80-year-olds that are, polite, Ivy League educated people from nice families, can they handle these MAGA people, in Congress? Yeah. I don't know. I think we just need more Jasmine Crockett's. That's what I'll say.
I agree. Well, I alluded to that last week. Here's another example. I'm going to play this clip of J.D. Vance on Fox or something, and he's basically, they've created this narrative that Biden has left them a dumpster fire. Now, we know that's not true. We know that there's a peace deal under negotiation in the Middle East. There is inflation is coming down, cost of living is coming down. There is the economy is doing great right now, admittedly more on paper than how it feels, but it's going in the right direction. Job numbers are better than they've been even pre-pandemic. And yet it's like a purposeful plan to paint Biden's economy as a disaster so that then they can announce, like by magic, a week later after the inauguration, that Trump has somehow managed to turn it around in 7 days. Do you think it's fair to say that that's their plan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen this before from Trump. This is what Trump is good at. Trump is a master propagandist, and a lot of Democrats don't want to give him credit for anything. They say he's a dope, he's a dunce. That's true about a lot of things with Trump. Okay. But one thing he's very good at is propaganda. And, you see it because I saw it way back in, 2021, 2022 and 2020. He claimed that he built the greatest economy ever, and then Biden destroyed it. Okay. You have never once ever heard Trump say, I inherited a strong economy from Barack Obama. That's the facts. That's the reality. You can look at every economic indicator was positive when Trump took office. You can look at the line, and the line just continued at the same rate. It's not like, economic growth, unemployment. It's not like everything spiked when he was president. No. It continued on the same trajectory that he inherited from Barack Obama. But he will never, ever, ever give Obama credit for any of that. He just says, I am the one who did that. And then it was all destroyed. Of course, what is the reality? What did Biden inherit? Biden inherited the shitstorm. Biden inherited the global inflation, the supply chain problems, the COVID lockdowns, all that stuff, rolling out the vaccine, countries shut down, ports closed all over the world. This is what Biden inherited. People out of work, businesses closed. But, Trump is convinced by repetition, by repeating the lies over and over again, that everything was wonderful when he handed it off to Biden, and Biden screwed up. And now here we go again, because now everything is fixed for the most part. Everything is positive. The stock market is record. Unemployment is 4%. Inflation is down. Economic growth is up. And J.D. Vance is on the Sunday show saying it was terrible. And it's just like, again, I look to where are the Democrats? Where are the Democrats pushing back? I mean, I don't know. I don't know where they are. But yes, he's successfully setting this narrative that when he comes in and he just continues the Biden numbers, he will take credit for all of it. And I hope he doesn't get away with it, but I'm not optimistic.
Me neither. Here he is.
Yeah, so Shannon, if you step back a little bit, I do think it's important to reiterate that not just on the border, but on a whole host of issues, President Biden has left us an absolute dumpster fire. Now, we're excited to get to work, but we need to be open and honest about the fact that President Biden has not left the next administration in a good place, right? FEMA's funds are depleted. We have a wide open southern border. Oil is going through the roof. Bond yields went from 4.1% to 4.8% in a month. And that's on top of the fact that President Biden has been running the largest peacetime deficits in the history of this country. So we've got a lot of debt, a lot of problems, and a wide open southern border. And thank God that Donald Trump takes office in a week and a half, because we need somebody to actually govern this country effectively.
I mean,
I mean, you can't
border
really
crossings
say
are
much
way
to that,
down
can
this
you?
year.
Yeah,
They were up in the
I know.
past. They were up in the past.
Inflation down.
You know, inflation down. The bond thing has ticked up. He's right there. Okay. He found one. You can always find something out there in the economy that is a negative number. Okay, global oil prices. Okay, they are going up a little bit. All right, that is true. All right, so he found two things. He mentioned nothing about all the positives. Not one word. And okay, it's not his job. All right, this is his job. The lower expectations, because look, here's what I think. And debt. I mean, debt. Give me a break. I mean, Trump is the one who exploded the debt his last term.
8 trillion, wasn't it?
And what does he want now? He wants the debt ceiling eliminated for his entire presidency. That's what he wants in exchange for relief to California. This is what Mike Johnson is taking to the Democrats. If you want money for California, you have to agree to take the ceiling off the debt limit for Donald Trump during his presidency, which is grotesque. It's grotesque that he would leverage disaster relief for California. But if J.D. Vance says that they are so concerned about the deficit, why are they asking for the debt ceiling to go away? The whole point of that is to keep a cap on spending, because they know that they aren't going to deliver the spending cuts that they promised, and they know that their tariffs are going to disrupt the economy. And I think that they want to do big tax cuts. So they need to be able, when the shit hits the fan, they need to be able to blame Joe Biden.
We should probably mention that Joe Biden has been trying really hard in the last week or two to ring fence spending and funding and things that hadn't yet been funding that hadn't been apportioned yet. He's trying to make sure that everything has a place to protect the infrastructure bill and all of the work that he's been doing over the last 4 years, so that Donald Trump can't undo it. And he's literally been signing stuff off at a rate, in addition to appointing judges at such a great rate. Now I think one more than Trump ever did. But we are seeing a lot of Democrats, I guess, behind the scenes looking to protect their states, and I know California's done it as well with funding for legal issues going forward, just to try and protect them from the corruption that is coming. I mean, the White House is going to become the epicenter of corruption.
What first, and the other part is, Republicans have had control of the House for the last 2 years. If they have any issues over the budget or the deficit, they've been in charge, but they can't pass their own budget. So they've continued Nancy Pelosi's budget because they're incapable of passing their own. And now they're complaining about that budget, which they have adopted. And Vance pointed out, FEMA doesn't have any money. He's right. You know why? We just had 2 major natural disasters in North Carolina and Florida, and they took all the FEMA money. So that's why there's no money left for California. And Republicans don't want to vote to refund FEMA. He's blaming Joe Biden for this. I mean, but here's the point. Where are the Democrats? Where is the Democrats? Is where are the Democrats saying what I just said? I don't know where they are.
I know. I mean, I saw Nancy Pelosi limping around the rotunda with a walker after having her hip replaced in Luxembourg. But I don't know. I just, like you, I am, I'm not ageist in any way, but I recognize that the only way to fight the incoming regime is with youth, and to have lightning reflexes, to understand how Trump uses social media. Of course, Elon Musk is very much at the heart of that stuff too. And, the old guard are just not up to it. They aren't. And so there needs to be some shift. And I think, like I said earlier, I really do. I wasn't really a huge fan of Gavin Newsom before, but he's really impressed me off the back of this tragedy in California.
Yeah, I don't want to make up my mind on 2028 by any means right now. I want to keep my options open, listen to what everybody has to say, watch how everything plays out. But I mean, I think when this happened, Republicans thought this is going to sink Gavin Newsom. I think but I think it's the opposite. I think this is going to help him politically, because of the way he's handling things, and again, I just wish there were more Democrats in DC and around the country that were, Republicans get this. If this was a Republican governor under siege, like Gavin has been from all,
right, they would get behind.
They would rally around that person, and they would all be out there defending him. But I don't see that on the Democratic side, and that's a
shame, because it should be the other way around, really. But I think that a lot of these governors, especially, there is a kind of superstardom attached to it. I mean, even, I don't know, Josh Shapiro. I mean, any of these people.
Yeah, where's Josh Shapiro?
Right.
I haven't heard a word from him about California.
Yeah.
I mean, I just thinks, because I think he looks at Gavin Newsom as a rival instead of as a teammate. And this is a problem.
But that's as a result of the way that this political system is set up. The fact that governors can come, that governors are often part of the choice for presidential candidates and for leaders, that is part of the funnel and the route into the White House. And I guess that, that it shouldn't necessarily be like that. I mean, I'm saying that, and now we have a reality TV star back in the White House.
I mean, during COVID, the Republican governors had some rivalries with each other about who was opening faster, who had less rules.
I remember that.
So there was a little bit of that, but not much. I mean, they were at least out there pushing back in a unified way against the Biden administration and mandates. I mean, they all agreed on that. So, and I don't want to make the whole show where I'm like bitching and complaining about Democrats. I mean, it's just, I think we're all frustrated. And you talked about it too. You mentioned the leadership vacuum, and it's going to become much worse next week as the administration leaves. And we really, really do need a handful of people in Congress and governors around the country to step up and understand that I get that they're primarily focused on their state, but the party needs national leaders. We don't have any. Brock's not going to do it. Joe's not going to do it. Hillary's not going to do it. One of them has to do it. And that means when something happens in Pennsylvania, the governor of Arizona is going to get involved, and speak up, and go on the Sunday shows and defend that person. And instead of just sitting in your state and watching Republicans attack,
I met a guy last night who randomly said to me that he thinks Michelle Obama is going to be the one to come and save us all. And I was like, I don't think she wants to do it.
She doesn't want to do anything like that.
Exactly. And it's a good time to talk about the fact that she was absent at Jimmy Carter's funeral, didn't give an explanation. I can only assume it's because she didn't want to be anywhere near Donald Trump. And she's also announced, or her office has announced, that she's not going to be attending the inauguration either, which is no surprise to me. And personally, I think they should all boycott the inauguration. I'm not into this idea that, we stick by the rules and we maintain the protocols and therefore the democracy stands. I'm not into that. You have to stand up to fascists. And that's a perfect way to do it. There was a moment at the funeral with Karen Pence, wasn't there? I'll play this clip. Just set it up for us, though.
Yeah, of course, this happened 5-6 days ago, but still, I think it's important to contrast this with John Fetterman, going down to Mar-a-Lago this week, because here you have Karen Pence, a Republican, conservative Republican. And Michelle didn't go because there was people don't realize this. There was assigned seating, it's by protocol. So the Obamas were sat next to Trump as the last two past presidents. So Michelle knew she was going to have to sit next to Trump, and she was out. I think she would have gone if their seats were in a different place.
Right.
But she knew she was going to have to sit next to this guy, and she couldn't play the game like her husband can. And her husband was playing the game at that funeral with Trump, and took some criticism for it, including from me. But the point is that I think Michelle would have done exactly what Mike Pence's wife, Karen, did, which is glare at him, refuse to stand up, refuse to shake his hand. In fact, Mike Pence was asked after the fact by a Christian broadcast company what Karen Pence said to Trump, and he said, he's like, well, my wife loves me a lot, and I'll just leave it at that. So I think we know what Karen said, and Mike doesn't want to say it on a Christian station. Yeah. So good for Karen Pence. She said, totally. I'm not playing the game. You're scum. You tried to kill my husband. I'm not standing up for you.
No. All right, well, let's take a look at the clip.
Leland, good morning to you. We can see President-elect Trump now entering the room for this morning's service.
Al Gore, Mike Pence there with former President Trump. I'm not sure former Vice President Pence and Donald Trump have seen each other since.
They haven't. By the way, the answer to that is they hadn't seen each other.
Yes, they hadn't.
That was the first time. So you contrast that with Fetterman. So when Fetterman is running and he had his stroke and he was having problems and he couldn't really talk and his debate was a disaster. One of the worst debates ever because he just had a stroke and, he probably shouldn't have even have done it. But Democrats rallied around him and defended him and stood up for him and said, he'll be better. It takes a few months, but he'll be better. And don't judge him by his medical episode now. What did Donald Trump did? Donald Trump said that he believed that the reason why Fetterman had the stroke, he said because he's taken drugs. He said Fetterman is doing meth, crystal meth or fentanyl or something. That's why this happened. This isn't really a stroke. He's using hard drugs. I've got it from reliable sources. This was from drug use. So John Fetterman goes down to this guy's house and has dinner with him, with his wife. Look, I'm team Karen Pence on this deal. I get that he needs to represent his state and he's in his 50-50 swing state and all that kind of stuff. Trump just won his state, but you don't need to go down to Mar-a-Lago and kiss the ring. And by the way, nobody else has done this. No other Democrats has done this. Just John Fetterman. So I didn't get that whole deal. And I don't know what he's trying to do here or what his game is. But, I have no problem with him meeting with Trump in the Oval Office or something over an issue that concerns his state. But to go down to Mar-a-Lago and do that, I didn't like it.
I don't get it. I don't know what the appeal is. Too many people have gone to Mar-a-Lago unnecessarily. We have to finish in a second, but maybe we should finish on this story about the flags that were supposed to be flying at half staff for Jimmy Carter, and Donald Trump has announced that now this is actually not going to be the case for the inauguration.
Yeah. So when Trump first heard about this was 2 weeks ago. And when somebody told him that, hey, with Carter dying, this has been the policy. Who instituted this policy? Dwight Eisenhower, because there were all different protocol. There was no thing in writing. There was no tradition. Everybody kind of did different things when a president died. And so Eisenhower wanted there to be one standard. This is how we honor former presidents. We have the funeral in the National Cathedral. We allow them to be buried at Arlington if they want, which happened with John Kennedy. And we put the flags half staff for 30 days. That was 1954. And it's been that way ever since for the last 70 years. So when Trump finds out about this 2 weeks ago, he gets mad and he puts out the tweet and he says, this is outrageous. Nobody wants, because he doesn't want the visual of that flag behind him being at half staff.
Right.
Because, he thinks in his mind, Democrats are going to be saying that that's symbolic, that the country's in mourning for me, and I don't want that.
He's anything other than perfect, basically.
Right. I don't want, and it's just you're a child. So then they start pressing Mike Johnson. And I knew at that point this was going to happen because there was no possible way. If Donald Trump is saying this really means a lot to me, there's no possible way that Mike Johnson was going to say no to Donald Trump. And so, of course, now what's happening is all the Republican governors around the country are tripping over themselves to be next. After Mike Johnson made this announcement, you got Greg Abbott down in Texas. We're going to raise our flags too. And there have been multiple other Republican governors who have come out and said that they're going to raise their flags on Inauguration Day. And then they're going to bring them back down again the next day. All for Snowflake Donnie. He wants the flags up. He gets the flags up.
But this is another metaphor for authoritarianism. And, we need to recognize that I'm very conscious that I don't want us to forget that the rise of authoritarianism and fascism is coming to America and is going to be the regime as of, a handful of days' time. And I really hope that the media don't drop the ball on that. I fear they will, or they probably already have. And I think it's important for us to remind people that what you're seeing and hearing is authoritarianism. We just don't recognize it because we've not had it before.
Since the election, name a Republican who has stood up and said no to Trump on anything he wants. Because last time there were plenty. In 2017, there was plenty of Republicans who opposed Trump in Congress and around the country. Okay. The only one that I can think of is Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie, who voted no against Mike Johnson and refused to change his vote despite pressure. What happened to Thomas Massie? He got removed from the Rules Committee yesterday. I mean, they're letting him know, like, the punishment is coming, just like they threatened Joni Ernst with a primary if she opposed Hegseth. So we are not going to see any principled stands. Liz Cheney's are gone. The Mitt Romneys are gone. The Adam Kinzinger, they're all gone. It's all MAGA now, and that lays the groundwork for what you said, an authoritarian regime.
Yeah. It's very worrying, and we haven't mentioned, and we should probably just mention about the report, the Jack Smith report being released, that basically said that, yes, Donald Trump, there was enough evidence to effectively convict him for overturning the election. And that in itself, I don't know why that wasn't a bigger story in the moment.
Well, because, again, Donald Trump got out in front of it. Democrats didn't. And he said, full exoneration, right? Like, I've been exonerated. All the charges are dropped. Jack Smith is resigning. I won. Total exoneration. I've been vindicated. And Jack Smith, puts out a report and says, no, the reason why these charges were dropped is only because you won the election. And if you hadn't won the election, you'd be in prison right now. But again, Donald Trump's fire hose of propaganda being countered by a report by Jack Smith, which was put online at 1:00 in the morning. Nothing from Merrick Garland.
No.
That's the Democratic response to the propaganda. Not very good.
No. All right, we have to finish. But Ron, thank you very much. As always, if you want to download the audio podcast, you can do that later tonight. It drops wherever you get yours. If you want to watch again, then rewind and start over. Don't forget to comment down below. Check out our sponsors down there as well, and share the show. That's really the best way we get the word out, is to share. So we'll come back next Wednesday and do another Uncovered. Ron, I'll see you at the inauguration, I guess.
You're going, huh? You're going.
I don't even think I'm going to watch it. I don't think I can bring myself to.
I don't think I'm going to watch.
No. Okay. All right. All the best to you. Catch you on the other side.
All right.